What's the first thing that comes to mind if I say entry-level model? Something a little bit slow, something cheap, something poorly equipped, something to draw you into the dealership with its low sticker price, all so that the salesperson can then tempt you into something a little bit more expensive. Well, Ferrari also does entry-level models, but funnily enough, it does things a little bit different to other manufacturers because in its eyes, this is an entry-level model. It's the Ferrari Portofino M, and it's the slowest and the cheapest Ferrari Spider that you can currently buy. All 188,000 pounds of it. It's a 612 brake horsepower two-door GT Spider that replaces the standard Portofino as the gateway into the drop-top Ferrari range. The M stands for Modificata, a badge that usually signifies more focus, more speed, and of course, a higher price tag. Alongside the increase in power, the Portofino M gets the 8-speed gearbox from the SF90, a new exhaust system complete with GPF, and an extra position on the famous Manettino switch. There's also been changes to the exterior of the car so that you'll be able to tell a Portofino M from a regular Portofino, and that includes a reprofiled and more aggressive front bumper design, and you've also got larger air intakes down here, and also a new smaller intake which is there to reduce drag, and it also feeds into the now very recognisable side scallops on the Portofino. There's a brand new diamond cut alloy wheel design, and also if we come around the back we'll see that because the exhaust design has been changed, there's also a simplified rear diffuser which can be made entirely out of carbon fibre. And actually, talking of the exhausts, I always thought that the regular Portofino could have been a little bit louder for a 3.9 litre V8 Ferrari, especially one with a convertible roof. Worryingly, this car has now got the dreaded GPF, or gasoline particulate filter. But actually, it's not quite that simple because in putting the GPF on, they've now been able to take out the silencers from the exhaust, and they've also reshaped the bypass valve, so hopefully it should give a better noise. Well, of course, I would love to tell you what this car sounds like and drives like and feels like with the roof down, because that's a large part of the point about it. But the British summertime being what it is, and it was, trust me, about 27 degrees 2 days ago, it's now pouring with rain, and it has been all day. So not going to have the roof down, and it's also going to sort of impact what I'm telling you about the car, so just bear that in mind. But the sound is interesting. In the F8 Tributo, which has the same engine as the Pista, I could really notice that the sound and the engine noise, it just wasn't as good. It felt like it had been muted, but in this, at least with the roof up, it doesn't seem that much different to how it was on the previous, on the regular Portofinos. So actually, GPF or no GPF, because they've taken the silencers out and reshaped the bypass valves, there isn't that much that you can really tell the difference with. It still sounds pretty damn good, actually. The engine is the same 3.9 litre turbocharged V8 that we've become very used to in modern Ferraris now, but they've fettled with it a little bit by changing the cam profiles and also adding a speed sensor to the turbo so it can now spin at 5,000 RPM more than it used to be able to. So the end result there is they've made a car that was already very, very fast, even quicker. I mean, as we said, this is the entry-level convertible Ferrari, and yet still it's packing over 600 brake horsepower, and it feels it as well. I mean, it isn't light, this car, but it still takes off, even though you've got the power all going through the rear wheels. But on a day like today, it's struggling to put that power down, but once it does, once it hooks up, yeah, it doesn't feel very entry-level at all. Comparing it with Ferrari's other racier models, I've got to say the gearbox, it feels like on the upshifts, it's almost as good, it's almost as snappy, but on the down changes, there's a slight delay. It's still very, very quick, no doubt about that, but compare it with, say, an F8, and it's just not quite as razor sharp. I mean, you might not even be able to tell the difference, but I think it's just about there if you go looking for it. But I think owners of the regular Portofino will probably want to know more about what this gearbox is like in auto mode at low speeds, because in the regular car it was a bit slow to respond, not in the gear changes itself, but just in pulling away from junctions. You needed to give it a fair bit of throttle to actually make it do something, and then it might jump forwards a bit. It wasn't ideal when parking. This, you still need to give it a bit of a prod just to make it initially move away. But I've done a few low speed maneuvers in this, and it feels like it's not too difficult to just nudge it and position it where you want it, and actually get a little bit more feel when you're pulling out of side turnings or driving along at lower speeds. And Ferrari has addressed that. They've remapped it. They've also got slightly better fuel economy as well. And although it probably is nothing more than a software update, I think there is a tangible difference. It is an improved car at lower speeds. I could do with a little bit less immediacy from the steering at higher motorway cruising speeds, because it's still very hyperactive and on the edge of being nervous just off centre when you want a little bit more of a relaxed nature to it for long distances. But on a road like this, when it's dry, yeah, it's what you want. I mean, I'd love to tell you what the dynamic enhancer is like on a Portofino, but in conditions like this, the moment you put it in race mode and start to push it towards the limits of grip, the traction control, the stability control, they kick in straight away, and it makes it very hard to sort of feel where the car is about to run out of grip and how the dynamic enhancer helps the car out. Again, hopefully we'll get to drive it in the dry and exploit the race mode properly, because that has been added to this car. It wasn't on the regular Portofino. Something that is evident though, even in the wet, is the fact that they've actually stiffened up the brake pedal by around 10%, but it feels more than that, because it's actually now a really nice feel on the pedal itself. You can properly position the car into a corner with the weight on the nose and just get it where you want it. It does take a bit of getting used to, because there's about 1/3 of a centimetre of just dead travel right at the top of the pedal, but you push past that and you get a nice firm feel to it, which really allows you to push the car into corners even when the conditions are far from optimal like they are today. This hasn't obviously been quite the test drive or the weather that I was hoping for, but I think it's gone to show one thing about this car, and that it's interesting that they've called it the M, the Portofino M, the Modificata, which they give to the sportier models, the harder edge models, because one of the complaints about the regular Portofino was that it wasn't as rounded a GT car as, say, some of its rivals like the DB11 or the Bentley Continental. And by giving it that M badge, you'd think they've doubled down on the sportiness, but they haven't. It might be a better car to drive in the dry with the Ferrari dynamic enhancer tech, with a little bit more power. I've no doubt it probably is. But what struck me is that with the new gearbox, with it being better at low speeds, and also adding things like heated and cooled seats and an air scarf, this isn't a harder, more aggressive version of the Portofino, because that kind of seems a little bit irrelevant when you've got a 600 brake horsepower Ferrari. This is a Portofino update. It's a Portofino Mark II, and although that doesn't sound as exciting as M or Modificata, it's a better representation of what this car is about.